In this video, we're going to learn about using conditional statements when calculating summary statistics or counting the number of observations which satisfy certain criteria, or running regressions. Okay, so we've loaded our data. So here I've loaded some data called assignment 2. It's, data concerning housing prices in a couple different years, 1978. If I scroll down, I think there's another year as well, 81 as well. Okay, so let's say we wanted to calculate the number of observations that are from 1978, which I think is the first year, 1978. So we want to first click on the data menu, then it's data utilities. And this gives you a number of different options. We could label our variables so we can explain what they mean kind of over here. We could compare two variables or data sets. We can change the order of the variables we see along this line, or that's displayed when we look at the data. So the last one might be useful for one of your assignments, and it's to count the number of observations satisfying a condition. So let's click on that. All right, so this is the menu you get. So we want to have some kind of restrictions on our observation. So we want to count if year equals 1978, if I remember correctly. So this is saying count the number of observations that the year is 1978. And there's two equal signs here. So when you're looking at conditional statement and you want to see if it's equal to something, or you want to say that it has to be equal to something, you use two equal signs. So in general, one equal signs assigns a value, two equal signs is a conditional statement. So let's press OK. So this is the output we get. So this is the code that we could have written instead. We could have just written if, count if year equals 1978, and right below it tells us there's 179 observations from 1978. Next, we may be interested in calculating some summary statistics conditional on the observations being from, let's say, year 1978. So, we could write in our code in the command line if we knew it, but let's say we don't. We click on statistics, summaries, tables and tests, summary and descriptive statistics, and summary statistics. Just clicking on this gets our menu that we've seen before. Let's say we want to look at the price. We want to display additional statistics, percentiles and what have you. And if we want to put a conditional statement on that, we just have to click the second tab. And again, we see this kind of restrict observations, just like we saw before. So if year equals 1978. Click OK. Here we go. We could have written summarize if year equals 1978, comma detail. We've got the same answer, or same output, I should say. And so here we have the summary statistics for just observations from 1978. So again, there's 179, which is consistent with the number of observations we found before. And finally, we may be interested in running a regression where we're just looking at a certain year as well. So we have a conditional statement on a regression. So what we want to do is we want to run a regression, so linear models and related linear regression, click on that. So let's say we have the price as our dependent variable, the number of rooms as our independent variable. We want to place a restriction. So if, again, year equals 1978, click OK. So we could have just written in regress price rooms if year equals 1978, got the same results. So here we're given the sum of squares explained, sum of squared residuals, and the total sum of squares. We're given the number of observations from 1978, the R squared, the root mean squared error, the adjusted R squared, which we'll learn about in the next few classes, as well as an overall test, which is this F test up here, which we haven't learned about yet, but we will. And finally, if you look at this bottom kind of panel here, where it gives us the coefficient for the number of rooms, the coefficient for the constant, so underscore cons is the constant, gives us the standard error for each of these parameter estimates, and it gives us the t-stat. So this t-stat is kind of testing against the null that the effect is equal to 0. So it's a two-way test that, beta rooms is equal to 0, or beta 0 equals 0. And it gives you the p-value associated with that, with this t-test. And it gives you a 95% confidence interval as well for the estimate. So I think that's all you need to know to be able to do the second assignment. Good luck.